go. Starting our recording, welcome everybody to this week's edition of what we call the Goldmiind call for RX, great company. Everybody in this call is part of the company that is growing like crazy, and I'm what you call the Chief Mindset Officer. So people who come on this call live, hope you're here live, are welcome to watch this particular call, listen to it. If you're not calling in live, or you're watching it later on the replay line, you go to goldmiind.com, Goldmiind, and right there below, in a few hours after this call is done, we upload this call so you can watch it later on if you want to. We've been doing a series of calls, and I'll start repeating that same series next week. There's a series of 4 calls that I've been teaching, 4 specific skills that I think are essential to building anything you want in life, anything you want to succeed at. I think these 4 skills are necessary to do that. Or let's put it this way, they may not be necessary, and many people will achieve success by doing none of the things I'm talking about here today. But I think that doing these 4 things dramatically increases the probability of your success in anything you choose to do. So welcome to our call. If you're watching on a replay line, you can see this is a list of some of my best-selling books. This is the house that I'm calling you at right now. And we're going to be talking about a brand new book that I've written that's going to be as a gift to everybody who was on this particular call. It's called The 4 Maps of Happy, Successful People by #1 New York Times bestselling author, me. And that book will be released sometime in the next, well, I've been saying every 30 days for too many months. But the book is basically done. We've been talking about the 4 skills I think are critical. Clarity, knowing what you want, when you want it, etc. This is the map that describes that. And we talked about that 4 weeks ago, so I'm not going to go into it again. But if you ever want to watch what I taught here without having to wait for the next ones, you can always go to the archives right below the goldmiind.com webpage as you go to the bottom of it. And I talk about anticipation, and that, in other words, preparing yourself for the challenges that are going to face you as you climb the climb to the top of your best life. Last week we talked about rituals, and I was calling you from Fuzhou, China. And the replay of that call is once again at goldmiind.com. Up at the bottom of that page, it's a picture of me in Fuzhou, China. I missed a regular scheduled call, and therefore this call was recorded a day or so later and then uploaded, so you can always watch it. If you come to this site and I'm not there, it's probably because I'm somewhere in the world trying to hook on to the web internationally, which is what I was doing this last week, and couldn't get on the call. So I recorded it. This week is live, and this is the 9th of May 2016, and the conversation we're going to have today is about task. Everybody does task differently. Task is when you have a goal that you're trying to accomplish, a project that you're working on, and you want to succeed at that particular project. And there are a lot of ways that ordinary people do it. Doing a to-do list, that would be one way. Having no to-do list at all, but not being organized. There are other ways of pulling it off. But the bottom line is, usually it's a left brain function, and our school system really trains the left brain really well, which is what happens to children. They come in with high imagination, and therefore over the next 12 years of public education, their imagination is pretty much destroyed. By the time they leave, they are, like, step-by-step robots, basically. And their creativity and their imagination has not been enhanced as much as I think it could be or maybe should be. And therefore, what I'm going to teach you here is a very different way of doing time management, of organization. It all starts out with where you are now and where you're going. So the chart I'm going to have you do, I'd like you to draw right now on a blank piece of paper. This is something that I do every day. And starting from where I am, there's some things about my life I'm not happy about. And therefore, that's why I've got a little frown on my face. Every one of us is because things we're working towards, things that we want and things we don't want. And once you've decided what you want, then you enter into the process of how do I make that happen, right? So this climb to the top of this mountain, getting the things done that I want to get done, is a very complicated process. If you do normal project management, and you ever have looked at a project management sheet, you know, there's PERT charts and step-by-step plans and very left-brain tools, and they're complicated, but this is the way most corporations are run, from very complicated left-brain planning and strategic management tools. And your job, if you're part of RX now, is one of the things you were trying to accomplish, isn't it? Of all the many balls you're trying to juggle in the air, one of them is RX. And a lot of people get started and are excited. They have a dream. They anticipate the problems. They have a daily ritual that they try to focus on. And then they say, okay, now how do I get it done? How do I build my RX business, or frankly, anything that you want to do? Is it one of your projects? If it is, then it's one of those things that you should focus on. And I'm going to share with you the way I do, and the way I think is a revolutionary way of doing project management. Why did Steve Jobs succeed so brilliantly in Apple? You got to look at the story. When he left, was kicked out of Apple in the early 90s, or was it the late 80s? I can't remember. But he was out for almost 10 years. The company of Apple launched with a brand new project, and then when they kicked him out, it's because he was too creative, and because the people who came in to run it were running it on left brain tools, frankly, and they eventually did what the schooling system does to our kids. They basically just took all the fun out of it, and they destroyed the creativity of the company, and they left it bankrupt. Pretty much when he came back after being gone for over a decade, the company was weeks away from bankruptcy. And how did he revive it? He did something that all of us should do. He looked at all the projects and all the products on the list of the things that they were doing, and he basically said, there are a few products here that we can keep, but most of them are going to die. And he deliberately killed them. He said, we don't want to spend another ounce of energy or time or money on these projects or these products. And each product was a project, because each product had to have its own marketing team, its own marketing budget, its own planning process, and therefore it consumed energy and money and time. And having killed many of those products, which is what corporations do. They like to create products. They like to create ordinary, mediocre products and throw them in the world against competition where they get beaten to death. And that is not what Apple wanted to do, or what Steve Jobs wanted to do. So he said, well, there's only a couple of products we're going to keep. Everything else is going to go. And that's what they focused. And they focused their energies intently on making those 2 or 3 insanely great. That means they could only have time to focus on 2 or 3 to make them the best that they could possibly be. And then as the company started to succeed, it started going the black, it started to be more and more successful, then new projects would be coming online, and every year he would have a retreat and take his top 100 employees. Yep, there were thousands of employees, and he said, show me the best. I want to only talk to the top 100. It would have been terrible, wouldn't it have been, selected as number 101 and miss that particular brainstorming session where they went away to a retreat somewhere, and for 3 days they asked the question, what are we going to do for this next year? What are the projects and products we're going to focus on? And they had a brainstorming session where they would boil it down to 20 and then down to 10, and then they would argue for a day or so on which one of those projects or products ought to be the one they'll focus their attention on. And eventually, after arguing for 2 or 3 days, they came up with a list of 10, by priority about what should be first, which one should be second, which should be third, etc. And the story that was told in his autobiography, which I read with great interest because you want to read how geniuses operate. He's a genius. How did he do? How did he work it? And one of the first things he did was he narrowed the focus to just a few. And as they finished their brainstorming session, he took out a pen and crossed out the bottom 7 on the list that they had painstakingly created. And he pointed to the top 3 and he said, we can only do 3. Then he proceeded to say in the media, and he said it over his entire lifetime, we are more proud about the things we say no to than of the things we say yes to. Because if you say yes to too many things, you end up with mediocrity. Mediocrity kills, especially in a competitive world such as we live in. So you want your company to be successful. Therefore, you're going to focus on a few key products. And there he said there are only 3. So which were some of those 3 projects? You know, it was going to be the Apple Store. And certainly that was one of the projects for 1 year, and then they became insanely great. There's more volume per Apple Store than in any other store, according to what I've heard, than any other store in the world. More volume per square foot, per store, worldwide. And if you ever go into a store, I went to a store in Shanghai. I think it was Shanghai. Yeah, it was either Taipei or Tokyo or Shanghai. But I said, where's the Apple Store? And so they took me to this Apple Store. It was fantastic. And there were hundreds of people, these Asians, just hundreds of them, jammed into that little store. Well, it wasn't a little store. It was a big store. It was a huge store. And the bottom line was it became that great because he said, let's rip apart the way merchandising is usually done, and let's make it spectacular, which is what we're trying to do here with RX. We're trying to have a few products that are exciting, that are fantastic. We have 6 brands, and each brand has its focus. And now we're trying to go deep and make each one of those products, the best of the best in the world. We're still years away from accomplishing that, but focusing on the few things that we're focusing on now, I think it's going to make RX as great as Apple was. So the bottom line is you can only do 3. So what are your 3? And if RX is one of your 3, and I certainly hope it certainly is one of my 3, then going from where we are now in your RX business, which is like just getting started or maybe have done this for a while and it's not working, that's why we have the frowny face at the bottom left-hand corner. I want you to the top, which is the smiley face, which is having a lot of money, a lot of health, a lot of love, a lot of free time. That's where we want to go together, and that's why we'll do these calls on a weekly basis. This particular technology is something that I created. It's very simple, sometimes too simple. Sometimes people see that and they go, well, that's just too simple. That's just not good enough. And that's what Einstein would have taught you. The 2 concepts that Einstein taught. Number 1 is if you can't teach your concept so that a 6-year-old can understand it, then you don't understand it. And therefore, what I'm trying to teach you, I'm trying to teach you project management so a 6-year-old could do it. That's why it looks like a 6-year-old stuff. So that a 6-year-old could draw any one of those images, and if you're bad at art, you could draw that. I drew that, you could draw it. And number 2, he says you got to make things as simple as you can possibly make them, but not too simple. If it's too simple, then it just isn't strong enough. But if it's simple, that means it's understood by everyone that's on the team. And I'm trying to say that if you were to take what I'm going to teach you today in the next 10 or 15 minutes and teach it to corporations, that all their employees understood exactly what I'm teaching you here, it would double or triple, maybe quadruple the revenue of that company. Because it would mean they would have to focus on a few things, and then they would have to get everybody on the company on the same page. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you only have 3 projects you're working on, then you'll have things you work on today, things that are necessary for today. You have a one-year project time limit, which is the Steve Jobs one-year route, where let's be insanely great on a few 3 projects a year and adding new products as the years go by, so that next year there'll be another insanely 3 great products that they're working on, or they're trying to make the ones they already have even more insanely great. And then within 5 years, the whole company is going to have 3 projects per year, 15 major projects have accomplished, spread out over those 5 years. This is where you want to be. So where do you want to be 5 years from now in your RX business? And I want you to get pretty clear about that. If you're only focusing on RX and that's what this organizational situation is, then there'll be 3 fundamental things you'll want to get done in your RX business. If RX is one of your projects, then in that project, there'll be 3 separate different kinds of projects you're working on. And similar to this, for me, I've got 3 projects, and that's it. That's the only ones I focus on. If somebody tries to approach me with a 4th project, I've got to decide whether it would bump off one of those other 3 off the list. Can you work on a 4th one? Probably. You certainly can add it to the list and do some research on it in the other extra time that you have. But essentially, to make something insanely great 5 years from now, you got to focus your attention on those 3. So, like I said, you either can make this broad and say, I've got 3 separate kinds of projects or multiple streams of income opportunities. You got your job, maybe you got a real estate investment portfolio you're working on, and then maybe RX is another one of your streams of income you're working on. So that's how you'd break the projects up. Or, to even simplify further, if you want to focus completely on RX, and RX will have 3 separate things you're working on in RX every single year to improve, to make it better. For me, the way I organize my time is I've got 3 projects that I'm working on, and RX is number 1. So, and I have 2 others that I'm working on. Obviously, I have my mindset, my contributions to RX when it comes to the mindset stuff, which is here what I'm doing. That's my project 2, and then the project 3 is writing books, which is what I love to do, and I want to have written 25 books before the next 5 years is up. And I wrote 10 in the first 35 years of my career. I want to write 25 in the next 10 years of next 5 years of my career. So I want to leave, a greater legacy, and that means I have to make the book shorter, and I got to get them out faster. And so I've got lots of stuff I'm working on. But 3 is all I focus on. I say no to lots of things. Lots of people come up to me all the time with different things to work on, and I say no. Why? Because I want these things to happen. The 3 projects I just shared with you, they must happen. They must be done. I want them to be as good as they possibly can be. Now, working backwards from the ideal, back to these 3 other, chunks of time, now, dones, and ideals. Why do I use the word done and not the word goal? I'm using languaging for a lot of different reasons. A done is not a goal. A goal is not a done. But they can be seen to be interchangeable. The reason I don't use the word goal is because it's overused. And sometimes when you overuse a word, you start thinking you understand it. And the way people set goals is usually the way they set their New Year's resolutions. And we know the result of that. For many people, resolutions do work. But for most people, they're forgotten within 2 weeks of making them. And that's why I want to stay away from languaging that you might think you understand. And I want to use more unique languaging so that you don't understand it until I tell you what it really means. And then once you understand it, then you go, oh, then we'll use that word from now on, see? The same way that, well, I'll leave that behind. So a done is something that has been, it's in the past tense. It's done. It's not something to do, it's a done. A to-do is a goal, and therefore it comes from the future part of your thinking brain. It's true. When you literally mentally magnetic resonating your brain to see what parts of your brain are activated as you think, the goal section of your brain, which is going to be in the front portion of your brain right here. This is your prefrontal cortex. This is where goal setting and planning happens. And it's usually future-oriented. And therefore, by making it future-oriented, it automatically means it's not done. It means it's an undone. It means that I hope to get done. It means I might get it done. It means I might forget about it tomorrow too. It's like you do with a New Year's resolution. That's why I would never use the word resolution. Why? Because it's been overused. And it's been badly done. People use resolutions in the wrong way, therefore they don't get accomplished. Therefore, when you set one, you're setting yourself up to fail because you're using the languaging of failure. A resolution is the languaging of failure. So we're going to create a new languaging, which is the languaging of having something done. Therefore, when you think about it, you think of it as already been accomplished. I know that sounds almost impossible to do, but when you set a goal, you are setting it into the future, hoping that it'll happen. Therefore, your thinking of it comes from a different part of your brain. That is, if you think about something that has already been done. When you think about, and when you learn an NLP, when you think about a constructed image, that means an image you're imagining or you're projecting in the future. You're going to think about it by looking up, and I never can remember which of these two ways it is, so I'm going to guess at one. I might be wrong. But according to NLP, when you create a constructed image or an imagined image, you look up and to the left. And therefore, your eyes will literally go up to the left. And like I said, it could be the right or the left. If you go up and to the left, that means you are thinking from a part of your brain about something that has not happened yet. It's not real. And yet, if you think about a memory of something that is done, your eyes will go up and to the right. And I could have gotten that wrong, but if I remembered, it's up and to the right. And therefore, literally, your eyes shift to an area of your brain that remembers things that have been done. And therefore, you react to the way in which your eyes go by the way, whether they're done or whether they're constructed for the future, which is a long description of saying that when you think about something as done, I want you to imagine it from the place of having done it. I want you to literally physically, well, not physically, but virtually go to that place as if you had done it. So if your ideal was for you to be a chairperson in RX, I want you to imagine you in body as if you're going across the stage, receiving at the convention, like the upcoming convention in Orange County on the 25th, 26th, or 24th, 25th of June. You know, there'll be people going across the stage. They're coming up to the stage. They'll be getting a CEO pin or a chairman pin or a president's pin or a director pin. And I want you to imagine as if that's already happened. And you look out over the audience. You feel that pin on your chest. It's a little heavy because it's solid. It's got a real stone in there. And it feels good. And just hearing the applause, seeing the people, feeling what it feels like. In other words, it now starts to enter into a part of your brain where you've experienced it in your body, and therefore it's a done. When you declare a done, this is the new languaging I'm teaching you, it's where you only decide to do 3 things this year. 3 things are going to get done to the exclusion of everything else until you get those things done. And as soon as a done is finished, as soon as the project's been happening, one of my dones this year is to complete this book that I'm teaching you about right here. And this book has got to be finished this month. And it's going to be a done. It'll be done. It'll be finished and it'll be out. It'll be in the world for people to read. Yeah, I can cross it off my done list, and it has to be done this year. Yeah, my life depends on it. That's the kind of way I want you to think about it. And it's just a few things in a Steve Jobs kind of way. So we're working on this book to make it insanely different and fun and creative and maybe even great, right? So that's why I declare only a few. And then I go after those things with a vengeance. I want to get them done. And I want you to think about the things you try to accomplish in the same way. So the ideal for my 5-year projection is for me to have 25 of those books, of which the 4 maps is one. So once this is done, then my ideal in the future has been knocked off by 1. I've got 24 more to go. And I want to do at least 3 this year, so I've got 2 more after this one. And my projects for 2016 are to get 3 books out, period. You can count on it. As long as I'm breathing, I'm working on these projects, and they're going to get done because I said so. My word came out of my mouth. You heard it. Therefore, it must be done. I don't set a goal and tell people about my goals and then not do them, because that's the way most people do their goals. And they say, well, if I tell people about it, maybe it'll commit me more to it. But what percentage of those actually come into fruition? When you set a done, when you declare a done, it's your word on the line. And the more your word, when you say something, when it's out there in the world, you put everything you can behind it and make sure it happens. Now, a must, what is a must? Well, a must is the things that got to get done today in order for my dones to happen this year, in order for my ideals to take place in 5 years from now. And so I have 3 projects that I'm working on. So I only work on one of those, musts every single day on each of those various projects, because I want all 3 projects to be accomplished within my 5-year time frame. And therefore, I got to work on at least 3 things every single day, and they've got to be important. They've got to be things that are definitely going to move me forward. This is something that Tom Painter taught me a long time ago, and I've never forgotten. I absolutely love it. The difference between activities and results. Because a lot of people do activities, but a must is not an activity. A must is a result, which means I can read a book about how to write a book and get it done, but that's not going to get it done. The only thing that's going to get my book done is to write 500 words today. That's a result. In other words, that's going to actually work towards getting the book finished. So I've got to do little baby steps every day if I want to climb this mountain. And you might see right here on this chart I'm showing you, it's like a stair step, isn't it? Step number 1 there, that project number 1 leads to a step up the mountain to the dones of this year. That steps up to the ideals of 5 years from now. If I take the step on the daily must, then I'll be able to climb up to my yearly done. If I get that done, and I do it like I said I will, then my ideal will take place 5 years from now. So there are a prioritizing of your projects, and then acting on your projects every single day. And what makes this, I'm going to call it revolutionary, and revolutionary sometimes might seem too strong of a word, because some of the concepts I'm teaching here are not unique to me, but what makes this revolutionary in my mind, of course, I'm the author, so I'll decide whether I think it's revolutionary or not, but it's simple. You can do your project management on one piece of paper. And I challenge you to do this every day. I don't do this every day myself. I'm still trying to fit it into my life, and I'm the one who created it. But I do this every week, and sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. There'll be days when I just don't get it done. And this morning was one of those days because I had to do a training call with my teams in China and Taiwan and Japan and Singapore. And hold on a second. On a call now. Would you call me back in about a half an hour? Thank you. So I should have probably just hung up on that. So this morning I had to get up at 5:30 this morning and didn't, get into my certain planning stage that I usually do. But tomorrow morning I'm going to be back on what we call the ritual. I'll have my exercise in. I'll have my planning in. Of course, I'm operating off of Asia time right now. So I had to go. I went to bed at midnight. I had to get up at 5:30, operating off about an hour sleep the day before. So bottom line was it was it was a challenge. So what I'm trying to say is that if you do this training, if you do this simple organizational process for you, it's as good as done. It gets done. A must is something that on a to-do list, most people have a big, long to-do list. This is your to-do list. This is the 3 things you got to get done today, period. You don't have a list of 20 things you do. Could you do more musts in a day? Well, sure. You might complete these 3 things and then you add some more to the list. You do more. But if you focus on only a few big ones, every single day, then what happens is that they become part of your action plan for that day. And things that must get done take you to your ideals. And so that's the simple way of describing it. You must get certain things done in order to live your ideal lifestyle. And musts are daily, dones are yearly, ideals are 5 years from now. Now you can adapt this so that it fits the way you want to do it. But let's take it in terms of RX and the way you'd want to build your RX business. Suppose you want to be a chairperson 5 years from now. That means you'll be earning $6,000 a week. And multiply that out over 52 weeks, and you're making, what is that? 6 times 52. So you're talking $300,000 a year plus probably at least 50% more than that in leadership bonuses, etc. You're making $500,000 a year. How do you get to that level? Well, you have to accomplish some tasks in a yearly basis. And so maybe your task throughout this next year is to become a president, which means you're making anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 a week. In order to be a president, you have to I think it's $3,000 is the figure. I'm guessing it is. To be a CEO, you need $4,000 a week. So bottom line is, so maybe you set as a done, how do I get to be a person that earns, $3,000 in a week? That means you're going to have certain legs, certain, volume, certain customers on every single one of your legs. That's going to, at least you got to understand what it means, when you set it done like that. And you say, well, that's done. I can count on that. You can bet your life on it. I can bet on that. The answer is, okay, if you set that as a done, then get that done. I would rather you lower your sights. I'm going to do just the exact opposite that most goal-setting people teach you, which is to set your limits, shoot for the stars and hit the moon. I want you to shoot for an orbit around the earth. I want you to be lower in your goals, not higher, but to commit to them so strongly that nothing can stop you from accomplishing that more limited goal. Because you can always increase it beyond that point. After having accomplished a done, even if you did it in the year, you can add another done. You can double it if you want to. But when you give your word that something will be done, that means it's done. It's in the bank. It's finished. It's passed. Therefore, be really careful about what you commit to. And then commit every ounce of energy you can to it, right? Now, The musts are the to-do list, which I highly encourage you to throw away. Don't use a to-do list. It's one of the worst time management tools ever created. Well, really? Well, if you organize your to-do list properly, it can be changed so that it does work, but most people don't. They write down all the things they got to do that day. Most of the things are not things that must get done. They're things that could be procrastinated. They could be put off till tomorrow until they become more urgent. But the point is there's some things that you've got to do, so make sure those are the only things you write down. Get them done. They must get done today, right? Then you can always look on your to-do list, wherever it happens to be, and you can look down the list and say which of these is an activity and which of these is a result generating activity. Is it just reading of a book or going on this call right here we're doing right now. As much as I want you to participate in it on a weekly basis, is this making you any money? No, this isn't. This is not a results generating activity. Should you be out talking to people? Yes, that generates a result. So the must when it comes to building your RX business is to make a list of the people you know and go talk to every one of them. And most of them are not going to be interested in what you're doing, but at least you need to inform them. You need to let them know that you started a new business. You're not trying to sign them up in a business, but as a friend, you thought you'd like to let them know. That will generate a result, because the result is going to be a yes or a no. And as my partner, in my other businesses, Tom Painter would tell me, he said, I want a hell no. At least when it's a hell no, then I know that I don't need to spend any more time or energy on that. I want a yes or a no. I want to say, no, I'm not interested. Excellent. Good. We'll talk to you again in a few weeks, because you will. But at least for now, they've indicated they're disinterested in what you have. Therefore, you can move to the next person and talk to somebody else until you get a yes or a no. That's a result. If it's a no, good. Now I can go talk to somebody who has a yes. I want those kind of results every day. If you don't get those results every day, you're not building your business. Well, what else would you be doing? Planning to build your business? This call right here is planning to do your business. But this call doesn't generate a yes or a no. Unless you invite somebody onto this call. And you say, my mentor, Robert Allen, who is the chief mindset officer of this incredibly fast-growing company that's just exploding all over the world, he does a personal training and teaches us all in ARCs how to build our businesses. You ought to come watch. And they listen and they watch, and some of them will go, hey, that was cool. I like that. Tell me more. And others will go, I didn't like that. That's not, I didn't enjoy that. Don't tell me any more about that business. See, that would generate a yes or no. Why? Because you invited somebody and they had to say yes or no. And they said yes, then you get them on the call. And then here we can continue the yes process until they eventually say, no, not interested. Great. And then what will happen if they say no to ARCs? This is what will eventually happen, because they made a decision. They said no. One day, they'll lose their job. They'll ask themselves the question, if I had built a little side business on the side, had a little extra stream of income coming in, maybe enough to be equal or almost equal to my current job. I'm used to having both incomes coming in, but if I lost my job income, I could probably survive on my RX income. Yeah, maybe I'll do this one full time now, right? Well, if they lose their job and they didn't do their second income, the RX income that we're talking about here, what are they going to do? They're going to go into debt. They're going to get their credit cards maxed out. They're going to go to try to find another job, find it's a little harder than they thought. They're a little older than they were. The skills they have are not quite as good, and therefore it's a downward slope, not upward like this is. downward slope for most of the rest of their life. They need an extra stream of income as insurance to make sure that doesn't happen. And then maybe this extra stream of income they're building here could really take them to the next level of their life. So they'll either say yes or no to this. One day, if they say no, they'll wish they had said yes, because life will beat them upside the head and prove to them that an extra stream of income like the ones we're creating here together would be a good thing, not a bad thing. So this is what I call the simplified visual math training system for the right brain types. And the left brain types can see the strategy involved in this. Some people that are left brain, they like to have spreadsheets. But, you know, for people who are more right brain, spreadsheets don't work. They look at a spreadsheet, they go, oh, well, that's too complicated for me. And then sometimes people who like spreadsheets will look at this and go, that's too simple. Yet, I guarantee if their spreadsheet and the listing of all the things they want to do were simplified like this, even on a spreadsheet, then they would only get done, and they would only see what needed to be done simple in front of them and not be distracted by all the other things that are on the spreadsheet. Does that make sense to you? This is what I call the fourth map, the map of happy, successful people. And I hope you enjoyed it. Any comments, questions that you might have? I'll open up the line for everybody. If you want to ask a question in a chat, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm going to stop sharing right now that particular chart. We're going to come back out live here. The calls have all been unmuted for you. If you have a question you'd like to ask, feel free to do so. If you have a comment you'd like to make, you're welcome to do that as well. Or if you'd rather just chat it in the chat box in the bottom, there's a little chat function. You can send me a question there if you want to. Or we can end our call and you can go off to the rest of your night. However you want to do it. Time is yours. Ask, comment, question, complain, argue, whatever. It's up to you. All right, that enough? No questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, shoot, let it rip.
Yeah, it's a helpful roadmap. I just need a bigger piece of paper. I have my current construction business, RX, and then as you know, I'm working with Dessauer.
Yes.
To handle that deal. So anyway, it's a good start for me to kind of start managing targeting, dones and the must-dos, the actionable money making. I know what those are, so it helps to basically identify those for my businesses. So
yeah,
anyway.
What this does is stretches you out. So you go, okay, well, what are the things I've got to get accomplished in order for me to make that goal happen? So it forces you to think it through, and sometimes it takes, a couple of cases. Sometimes it takes a week or two to kind of simplify, the whole process so that you're focusing on the things that will give you the most amount of results.
But it's about the prioritizing the musts.
Totally.
The actionable things you got to do daily.
Exactly.
Over and above the regular, hours we can do in our other jobs or businesses. So I got it. It's very helpful.
Excellent.
I'm going to get ready for the next call, so I'm going to click out.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, anybody? This call will be uploaded to the goldmiind.com website for you to review again if you want to. If you found something interesting in here for you to share with your team members, send them there to watch it. That won't be uploaded probably till tomorrow morning. But in the meantime, I wish you well. God bless. Have a great day. Go make it happen. Go get it done so you can have the ideal lifestyle. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.